You did everything right. You swiped your card, you spent within your means, and you paid the full balance before the due date. Zero interest, zero late fees. You are the textbook responsible borrower. And then 3 days later, your phone buzzes, you pick it up, your credit score just dropped 25 points. You didn't miss a payment. You didn't open a new account. You didn't do anything wrong. And yet the algorithm punished you anyway. This happens to hundreds of thousands of Americans every single month. And it almost always comes down to one specific date on the calendar that nobody ever told you about. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on how the banking system actually takes its snapshot of your finances, and how shifting your payment by just 48 hours can be the difference between a good score and an exceptional one. My name is Dave, and I spend way too much time thinking about credit systems, hidden financial mechanics, and the rules of money that actually matter. If you are someone who uses credit cards and wants to stop being blindsided by a score that makes no sense, hit that subscribe button, and give this video a thumbs up if it saves you from the next mystery drop. Let's start with the trap that catches almost everyone. From the time we are old enough to have a bank account, we are trained to worship one date, the due date. Pay by the due date. Don't miss the due date. The due date is the law. And look, in terms of not losing money, that is absolutely true. Pay by the due date and you avoid interest. You avoid late fees. You keep your payment history clean. But here is where the whole system breaks down. We assume, and this is the killer assumption, we assume that the credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax are watching a live feed of our finances. We assume that the moment we pay our balance on the 15th, the bureau knows we are debt-free on the 16th. That is not how any of this works. The credit scoring system is not a movie. It is not a live stream. It is a series of photographs. And unfortunately for a lot of responsible people, the photographer usually takes the picture right when your room is at its messiest, days before you actually clean it up. Here is the actual timeline you need to visualize. Let's say your billing cycle runs from the 1st to the 30th of the month. During those 30 days, you are swiping for groceries, gas, subscriptions, maybe a dinner out. Your balance is climbing steadily. On the 30th, the billing cycle closes. The bank generates a statement, that PDF in your email inbox. This moment is called the statement closing date, and the balance on that specific piece of paper, that is the number the bank sends to the credit bureaus. It gets hard-coded into your credit report for that month. Your due date, however, isn't until 25 days later, so you might have a balance of $3,000 sitting on your report on the 30th, even if you turn around and pay every penny of it on the 20th of the next month. The bureau sees high utilization. You paid perfectly on time, but the bureau already took the picture. This creates a massive psychological disconnect. Your bank account shows money flowing out to cover the bill. You feel responsible. But your credit report looks like you are riding your cards hard every single month. Think about the last time you made a big purchase on a card, a flight, a new appliance, a car repair you couldn't avoid. And then a few weeks later you noticed your score dipped. You probably thought the system was broken, or that credit cards were inherently dangerous. It is not that the system is broken, it is just bureaucratic. It is reporting yesterday's news. You are living in real time, but your credit score is living on a 30-day delay based on a snapshot taken before you made your payment. And here is the thing most people miss. If you do not control when that snapshot is taken, you are letting the bank decide your creditworthiness based on your worst financial day of the month. The solution has a name. We call it the statement date strategy. Though honestly, calling it a hack gives it more drama than it deserves. It is really just a timing adjustment, a small one, but the impact is anything but small. Instead of waiting for the bill to arrive and then paying it, you pay the balance before the bill is even generated. You pay down your balance 3 or 4 days before the statement closing date. If you do this correctly, when the cycle closes on the 30th and the bank generates the statement, it shows a balance of maybe $10. That $10 balance is what gets sent to Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Suddenly, the snapshot they receive shows you using almost none of your available credit. Then, on the actual due date 3 weeks later, you pay that remaining $10. You use the card completely normally, but the record shows you barely touched the limit. Now, you might be thinking, does it really matter whether the bureau sees $1,000 or $10 as long as I pay it off? A point or two difference? You are underestimating the algorithm significantly. Crossing the wrong utilization threshold can drop your score faster than almost anything else short of an outright missed payment. And to understand why, you need to look at how heavy this particular weight actually is. Let's talk about the FICO pie chart. Payment history is the largest slice at 35%. That makes sense. Did you pay your bills? But the second largest slice, coming in at a massive 30%, is amounts owed. And that category is almost entirely driven by your credit utilization ratio. Think about that. Nearly one-third of your entire financial reputation is based on how much of your available credit you are using right now, not over your lifetime. Right now, it is weighted heavier than the length of your credit history. It is weighted heavier than your mix of credit types. You could have a perfect 10-year payment record, but max out your cards for a single month and that 30% slice of the pie crumbles. Your score drags down with it instantly. The math itself is simple division. Utilization equals your current balance divided by your credit limit. Owe $500 on a $1,000 card? You are at 50%. The scoring models generally penalize anything above 30%. That is the first major cliff. Cross 30% and you look like a risk. Cross 50% and you look like a crisis. Approach 100% and your score goes into freefall. But here is the nuance that most breakdowns leave out. This applies to both your overall utilization, all your cards combined, and your individual card utilization. You could have $50,000 in total available credit, but if one single card with a $500 limit is maxed out, your score takes the hit. The algorithm flags that one maxed account as a sign of financial distress regardless of everything else. I call this the panic zone. There are people out there with 800 credit scores who have watched their scores fall into the 740s simply because they booked a family vacation on a card with a lower limit. They did not miss a payment. They did not apply for a new loan. They just let a utilization spike cross a threshold on the statement date. And the crazy part is, most of them had no idea why it happened. They checked their monitoring app, saw the drop, and assumed identity theft or a banking error. The reality was just the cold math of the 30% weighting kicking in. The system views high utilization as a precursor to default. Historically, people who ride their cards hard are statistically more likely to fall behind, so the score adjusts to reflect that risk immediately, without waiting to see what you actually do. Here is the good news, and this is where the mental shift happens. Utilization has no memory in the most common scoring models. This is unlike a missed payment, which haunts your report for 7 years. Utilization is what you might call memoryless. As soon as a new lower balance is reported, the old one is simply forgotten. If you were sitting at 90% utilization in January and your score tanked, but you pay down to 5% in February, your score will bounce back as if that 90% month never happened. This is why the statement date strategy is so powerful. You are not patching a permanent scar, you are correcting the current data point. You can fix a utilization problem in 30 days or less. That is a lever almost nobody knows they have. Alright, real talk. Have you ever watched your credit score drop after doing everything right? Drop a yes or no in the comments. I want to know how many of you have been hit by this without knowing why. So logically, you might think, the goal is to report a zero balance every single month. If low is good, zero must be perfect. I am going to stop you right there. Consistently reporting a $0 balance across every single card can actually produce a lower score than reporting a small balance. It sounds backwards, but the system penalizes you for looking like a ghost. This is one of the most stubborn myths in credit. People wear the zero balance badge with pride. They pay everything off 3 days early so the statement reads nothing. And while this is great for their peace of mind, it confuses the FICO algorithm. The scoring model is designed to assess how you manage debt. If your report shows zero owed month after month, year after year, the model has no data on how you handle repayment. You are not demonstrating the behavior the system was built to evaluate. In the eyes of the algorithm, a person who never uses credit is slightly riskier than someone who uses it responsibly and consistently. Actually, let me put it this way. There is a strategy built specifically for this situation. It is called as-EE, all zero except one. If you have 5 credit cards, you pay 4 of them to zero before the statement date. For the 5th card, you pay it down to a tiny reported balance, maybe $10 or $20. Roughly 1% of the limit. This tells the algorithm 2 things at once. Yes, I am actively using credit, and yes, I am keeping it extremely low. This specific mathematical state is what triggers the highest possible points in the amounts owed category. My FICO data suggests that people with 850 scores average somewhere between 4% and 7% utilization, not zero. A small, deliberate balance. Now, I know what you are thinking. If I leave a balance, I am going to pay interest. And this is where the terminology trips people up. Reporting a balance is not the same as carrying a balance. Hear me out. The statement closes on the 30th with a $10 balance. That $10 gets reported to the bureaus. You then have until the due date, usually the 20th of the next month, to pay that $10. As long as you pay by the due date, you pay zero interest. You get the credit score benefit of showing active use. and you get the financial benefit of paying nothing extra. You are threading the needle between the reporting date and the due date. Two separate events, one score, your call. So here is the actual step-by-step protocol. Step 1 is information gathering. You need to find the statement closing date for every card you own. This is not always obvious inside the mobile app. Banks love to highlight the due date because that is what keeps you from being late and triggering fees. The closing date is buried. To find it, go to the Statements tab in your app or online portal and open a PDF of a past bill. Look for language like billing cycle ends or next closing date. Once you have it, set a recurring calendar reminder 2 to 3 days before that date. If your card closes on the 15th, your reminder fires on the 12th or 13th. That buffer matters. Bank transfers can sometimes take a day or two to post, and you do not want to cut it so close that the transaction clears after the statement already generated. Step 2 is the math. On your reminder day, log in and check your current balance. Let's say it is $800. You want to report $10. You manually initiate a payment of $790 right then. Do not wait for autopay. You push the transfer yourself. When the statement generates on the closing date, it sees $10. That number flies off to Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. You successfully curated the snapshot. Step 3 is the cleanup. After the statement closes, you will get an email or notification saying your statement is ready. Open it. It should show a new balance of $10 with a minimum payment of $10. Now you simply need to ensure that $10 gets paid before the actual due date, typically 20 to 25 days later. If you have autopay set to pay the statement balance, it should automatically pull the $10 on the due date. But I recommend checking manually the first few times you run this process. You do not want to be so precise about utilization that you accidentally let the cleanup payment slip and trade a temporary score boost for a permanent late payment mark on your record. That would be the worst possible outcome. A word on consistency. You do not need to run this protocol every month on every card unless you are actively preparing for a major application, a mortgage, an auto loan, a business line of credit. It is high maintenance if you try to do it permanently. Here is how I personally approach it. For most of the year, I keep utilization generally low, under 10 to 20%, and let autopay handle the rest. The score fluctuates naturally. That is fine, but when I know I am applying for something significant in the next 60 days, I switch into active management mode. I run the statement date protocol, I pull the lever, and I walk into that application with the strongest possible score. The point is not to micromanage your credit forever. The point is knowing the lever exists and being able to use it on demand. But there is a way to abuse this that can get your accounts shut down entirely. It is called credit cycling, and it is something you need to understand. Let's say you have a $1,000 credit limit. You spend $1,000, pay it off mid-month, spend another $1,000, pay it off again, and repeat. You have now technically processed $3,000 in charges on a $1,000 limit. You might think the bank loves you for the activity. You would be wrong. To a bank's risk department, that pattern looks like money laundering or bust-out fraud. Credit cycling is when you run through your full credit limit multiple times within a single billing period, while paying down your balance before the statement date is smart. Doing it repeatedly to artificially extend your spending capacity is a different thing entirely. The bank gave you a $1,000 limit for a reason. That represents their risk tolerance with you specifically. If you are cycling through $3,000 of transactions on that $1,000 limit, you are forcing them to absorb 3 times the transaction volume they agreed to. This can trigger a financial review. They might freeze your account and ask for tax documentation, or they might simply close it without warning. Here is the tell. If you constantly hit your limit and need to pay it down mid-month just to keep using the card for everyday spending, the answer is not a payment timing trick. The answer is a credit limit increase. Call the issuer. Tell them you pay in full every month and your daily expenses require more room. Request an increase. Higher limits solve the utilization problem automatically. If your limit is $20,000 and you spend $2,000, your utilization is 10%. You do not even need the strategy. You are naturally in the excellent range without doing anything special. And now we arrive at something most credit videos completely skip. There is a viewer comment I want to address directly. Multiple people watching videos like this one have said their score dropped after paying off a car loan. Their payment history was perfect, their utilization was low, and yet the score fell. Here is why. Your FICO score does not just care about revolving credit. That is your credit cards. It also evaluates your credit mix. Having both revolving accounts and installment accounts, things like auto loans, student loans, or mortgages, signals to the algorithm that you can manage different types of debt. When you pay off your only installment loan, you eliminate that credit mix signal. Your score drops slightly, not because you did something wrong, but because the algorithm lost a data type it was tracking. This is one of the more frustrating features of the system. Paying off debt, literally the responsible thing, can temporarily lower your score. The fix, if you care enough to manage it, is to not close all installment products simultaneously. Stagger your payoffs when possible, or maintain a small installment product on the side. Think about it this way. The scoring system is not measuring how good you are with money. It is measuring how much data it has on you across multiple debt categories. Those are two entirely different things. Let's also talk about the future of this system, because it is changing. Most lenders currently use FICO 8, which is the snapshot model we have been discussing. It reports your current balance and forgets the past once you pay down. But newer models like FICO 10T use something called trended data. They look at your balance history over the previous 24 months. If you historically run up large balances and only pay them down at the last possible moment, FICO 10T may begin to see that behavioral pattern. The statement date strategy still works for the utilization component, but trended models are smarter. They can distinguish between someone who genuinely maintains low utilization and someone who just cleans up the data right before the snapshot. FICO 10T adoption among lenders is still slow. For now, the snapshot strategy is king, especially for mortgages and auto loans. But be aware that the game is evolving. One final defensive move that almost everyone gets wrong. When people try to simplify their finances, one of the first things they do is close old unused credit cards. Makes sense on the surface. Fewer accounts, less to track, but in the context of utilization, this is a costly mistake. Your utilization is calculated on both a per-card basis and an overall basis. If you close a card with a $10,000 limit and a zero balance, you just removed $10,000 from your available credit denominator. Your total debt stays the same. Your total limit drops. Your utilization percentage spikes immediately without you spending a single dollar. Keep your old cards open. Put a small recurring charge on them, a streaming subscription, a low-cost monthly service. Set it to autopay, let those accounts pad your total available credit, and keep your utilization naturally low. Old cards with no balance are ballast. They keep the ship level without costing you anything. Actually, let me put this plainly. The credit score system is not a reflection of how good you are with money. It is a reflection of how well you understand the specific rules of the game. And the rules are not taught in school. They are not included in the fine print of your credit card agreement. They exist in the mechanics of the system, the closing dates, the reporting windows, the utilization tiers, and most people go their entire adult lives without ever learning them. So let's do the full recap. First, stop treating the due date as the only date that matters. Find your statement closing date. That is when the snapshot gets taken. Second, calculate your utilization. Under 30% for a good score, under 10% for an excellent score, under 5% for the elite tier. Third, 3 to 4 days before your statement closes, log in and manually pay your balance down to a very low amount, but not to zero. Leave around 1% or a small nominal dollar amount on one card using the AZE method. Fourth, let the statement close. The bank reports that low number to the bureaus. Your score reflects it in the next update cycle. Fifth, pay off that remaining small balance by the actual due date to avoid interest. 2 payments, 0 interest. Controlled snapshot. The banking system is built on rules. Most people only learn the rules about fees and interest rates. But the rules about reporting windows and data timing are just as powerful and far less discussed. By taking control of when the picture gets taken, you stop being a passive subject of the algorithm and start being the one holding the camera. Try this for 1 month, pick one card, find the closing date, pay it down 3 days early to near zero. Then watch your monitoring app. If even one number from this changed how you think about credit, pass it forward to someone who is still getting punished by a system they never fully understood.